Welcome to 22 Motivational Minutes with Marlo, our brand performance podcast, where we connect and collaborate with other self-sustaining entrepreneurs, authors, and experts. Hi, I'm Marlo Higgins, your Chief Inspirational Officer. I like to say when we perform, we get paid. This podcast focuses on the areas of confidence, mindset, leadership, and performance, which all lead to increased revenues and sales. As your Chief Inspirational Officer, I'm focused on the development of people by unearthing their values, talents, and self-worth, otherwise known as that self-esteem factor. People matter, self-worth matters, time matters. When it all aligns, everything works. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of 22 Motivational Minutes with Marlo. And today, wow, this is going to be a game changer because we have Jared Wiese with it. Am I saying that right?
Wiese, close enough.
Okay, Wiese. Okay, well, I wasn't 100%, but now we know. So Jared Wiese is on the line with us today. And the reason why we have Jared selected for this particular episode is because he helps you pop leads and jobs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that pop and what Jared means by that, because he's a lead generator. And if you're in business, you are listening to this episode, everybody needs a lead generator. And this is kind of the king and the master of lead generation. He's also a resume writer, and he takes why you're here, and he gets people the careers that they love. And just right there, that is a catalyst for anyone listening, right? We all want to be in a career that we love, but Jared helps you do that. He comes to us from Wisconsin, and he says, if you have these problems that you're chasing leads, or you say or spray and pray, which so many people do, you kind of spray and pray resumes and, just kind of wasting time on LinkedIn, Jared is the person to come to because he has those solutions. He's going to help you pop your profile on LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about that today. So thank you for being on this episode today, Jared, and I just want to jump in and welcome you.
Well, that was such a wonderful introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself. I loved it. Thank you so much, Marlo. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, so you and I have connected. I've been watching you. You're somewhat of an influencer. That's how I would witness you, right? You're doing a lot of things, and you influence people, and you're influencing through your exposure and your platform, how you do it. You and I reached out. We've had a conversation. I've gotten to know you. I follow you and watch you, and I'm just wildly impressed. And so, this episode is really for entrepreneurs and C-suite executives, people who are in business. And we could all use, and I don't care how long we've been in business, but we can all use your support and your help. So define, what does this mean? What does popping your profile mean for LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I can sense it that it's out there even if I don't get asked the question. So it's one of those things that I've always tried to help quickly sum it up, because that's really at the heart of all of this. What drives the whole idea of pop is that at times I'm on a fine line with it. You don't want to be gimmicky, but yet it's got to be a brand, and it's got to actually mean something. So the way that, for example, on my profile, that I have those characters that show up in colors in kind of a block mode, I was very careful and strategic in choosing that, because I do want it to stand out. I do want people, and I have gotten some feedback, people saying, whoa, well, if that's all this is, then I don't want to, I don't want that. But they're missing the point. If I got you to notice that, now I've got a little bit of a hook. And that's exactly what a pop is, because you can have the best content, the best copy, the best branding collateral that you want in the world. But if nobody ever sees it, you're invisible, right? And marketing 101. So it's a little bit of both. And that's exactly the kind of fine line that you have to tread. You have to get a lift, a little bit of a boost in the front. And it's so true today. I mean, you think about newspapers in the past, you think about news headlines today. What do? That headline is critical, right? We all glance at things in seconds. We look at it, and if it doesn't, quote unquote, pop, we move on. We don't have our interest. You think about the nightly news. If it's not something that's shock and awe, if it doesn't pop, good or bad, we're going to move on. So it's taking an advantage of that and recognizing that and turning it to your advantage and making sure that you get the people to look at what you offer. It's not about being gimmicky, but it's about making sure you capture their attention up front as fast as you can, and then following it up right away with something that you offer.
Right. Okay. And I mentioned too, Jared, I'm one of those people, right? I raised my hand and I said, okay, give me, a
Yeah.
2-cent tour of my brand. What are you seeing? Does it pop? Does it not? And you immediately had some great feedback and some input. And let's even take that conversation live right now. So like you and I went out there and I said, look, this is what my profile says. And, because I coach executives to gain clarity, remove self-doubt, and increase performance in sales. And then what did you come back to me and say? What was your insight from your
Yeah,
behavior?
I'm trying to remember exactly when we had that conversation a little bit ago, but I remember the essence. There was something in all of that, essentially all of that I was reading through in your profile and in the notes, I think actually that I was taking. And what struck out to me was I create confident leaders. I think you made that statement at one point, and I
Yes.
had written it down. And just like I think you do so well, Marlo, you take what people say to you and they're explaining themselves maybe for the first time to you. And that to me stood out. And I said, wow, there you go. There's your pop. So there you go. It's not gimmicky letters and characters and anything flashy and anything like that, but it makes you stop and say, wow, you do? Really? How? Tell me more. What do you mean? Instantly, you've got that pop. You've got them wanting to know more. And that's what's critical, getting that up early, and we can get into this more, but especially the essence is, especially on the app, the LinkedIn app, you may only get the first 3 to 5 words of your headline. And of course, you get
Right.
your name and you get your picture. That goes with you everywhere on the platform. But especially on the app, that may be all you see. So it becomes that critical, those first few words, it's really got a pop for you.
Oh, totally agree. And so like our brand is around, like making Mavericks, building champions. And so take me to that conversations because you have some good insight into positioning. I make Mavericks. And what is that, right? So take me
Right.
to your mindset when you were kind of looking at that brand. I mean, you do have some valid concepts here. And this is where people are listening to Jared and going, oh my gosh, like I want to check into this. I need to see what Jared's all about and what this pop thing means. But like take people because the Maverick is a brand. And so give me some insight there on how you can make that brand posture and
Mm-hmm.
positioning connect to actually what we do.
Right. And I think your example is actually a really good one, Marlo, because even if I get just that little bit, if I see Marlo Higgins, I see your picture, and I see the first bit of your headline, the way it is right now, I know after we talked, you had changed it and you shortened it down and you've got, I create confident leaders. But I had another realization looking back at your profile before our call here today. And I thought to myself, the background that you have, it's also pretty important, but that's important when people get to your profile, of course, right?
Mhm.
If they click on the profile, now that you've got that extra collateral, that picture that's above your picture, above the top of your profile, and you have got your book there, Making of a Maverick. So visually, instantly, you're seeing that. But then I'm left wondering, well, how does that tie to I create confident leaders? Is that what a Maverick is? What does that mean? What do you do for me? Instantly you've got a little bit of a disassociation or a little bit of an unsync happening, right? And it
Right.
dawned on me, well, I'm all a big fan of threes, and I'm also a big fan of mnemonics. I'm a big fan of getting things to be memorable, and just short and sweet. I make Mavericks. Now, that alone is
Right.
kind of like, oh, cool, neat. But then, I was just
What's
telling
a
you on our
Maverick?
call, what's a Maverick? What does that mean? Well, good. I'm glad you asked. But see, I already got you hooked, didn't I? So
Right.
now you've got 120 characters. I make Mavericks, and you could put it in proper case or put even Mavericks in capitals,
Hmm.
something if you want just to make it really stand out. And
Right.
then you could put a dash or a hyphen or something, a little symbol even if you want, but follow it up. You're going to probably have close to 100 characters. You can follow it up now that you've got that hook. And I like to call that a tagline. I wrote an article a couple years back. There's 3 elements that I would say to a headline. So again, you have 120 characters. What do you want to try to put in that headline? You want to put your tagline, your talents, and your targets. So you've got confident leaders. That right off the bat right now, well, obviously that's your target, right? You're trying to help people become leaders. So you're helping leaders and you create the confident ones. So that's a bit of a tagline there. Um,
Right.
but what's your talent? How do you do that? The Maverick piece, right? So by leading with I make Mavericks. You've got the mnemonic I make my Mavericks. It rolls off the tongue. It's memorable. Then you can explain it more, and you start getting into who you help, that target, and you start getting into the talent. How do you do that? What do you mean? If you can distill that down into 3 words, which I'm betting you can, because I've heard your pillars on your podcast before, Marlo.
Right.
Your loves, your passion, the entrepreneurial aspect of things,
Yes.
being empowered, right? All that good stuff. Well, think about it, reflect it, get it in that 120 characters, make it your own. And I mean, that's a huge part of what I do with a client. I mean, right off the bat. And now this is getting a little bit ahead of where this conversation may be going here, but I just wanted to say it's a good segue. One of the very first things that I will ask, not just a client, but a prospect, is I will say, what do you want to be known for? And they say, well, like let's say in your case, I create confident leaders, I help people with sales, things like that may come to mind. And then I try to get them to make it into 3 statements, and even better, 3 words. So Maverick is definitely one of your words.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is empowerment. Is that another word maybe? Or is it leaders? Or is it leading? There's all these kind of words that are floating around right now. And that's what I love to do. That's when I come alive. It's my little passion is how can we get those words to resonate and to actually help tell your story?
Absolutely.
That's when it all clicks, right?
Well, and this is what you're so great at, though. I mean, Jared, and when you're speaking, number one, you're lit up, right? People can hear that. It's your voice inflection. You're super passionate about it, but it's that passion to purpose. I mean, your purpose is to help people, and you've witnessed time and time again. I mean, who hasn't, right? LinkedIn is a huge platform, and there's so much success to be had there, but there's missing opportunities, and you have created the solution to the problem of those missed opportunities. You're saying, you know what, lead generation is the bloodline to business. So if we can get your leads paying attention to you in this way, which is unique to you, and it's a skill that I have, that's where people need to be working directly with Jared Wiese, because this, even for me, like that was a conversation we had, and it's led into podcasting. We're going to be expanding this conversation to so many more listeners being in this space with us right now, hearing it and going, I need that same thing. So what got you there? Like, give us your story, Jared. Like, how did this talent or this natural skill set really come to life for you? Was there an example or a catalyst moment?
Oh, that's such a good segue. I was actually hoping you would kind of go that way because I was going to interject with it if I had to. But it's so perfect. The timing is perfect. Just a real quick background, though. I came from an IT degree, so programmer. But I was never the kind of guy that you would throw in the back cubicle and say, okay, can you put together this program, bang out the code, and just get that done. I never had a desire to do that. I literally from day one, and this gets a bit more into the personal side, I probably 3 decades now, I've been into personal development. We're talking Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, Maya Angelou. Those are probably 3 of my most memorable people that I would say that I try to model. I was always asking the why. So that gradually led to me becoming more of an IT business analyst. And I was great at asking the questions. And so what that role did for me, and I've been doing it for a couple decades now, is, you go to the business, or the business may come to you and they say, we want the computer system to do X. And then I would come back and say, have you thought of A? Do you really want it to do Z? Why would you want it to do Y? You come back with these questions, you challenge it a little bit, and then you go to the technical guys, the programmers, and you say to them, hey, how long or how much would it take, any of those questions, and they'll give you their answer. And there's a great analogy I like to use. It's like the business might ask for the moon, right? I mean, that's kind of an expression or idiom, whatever you want to call it too. But you go to IT and they'll come back and they'll say, well, I can get you a flashlight for that amount of money and that much time. So you might ask for the moon, you only get a flashlight, but that's just it. So it's distilling things down, it's asking the questions, and that was a perfect segue for me. So when I did that, now here's flash forward a little bit. 15 years ago, I put my resume on a job board. I got a call in a job with relocation the next day. So I had resumes down probably 15 years ago or so. About 5 years ago, I made a 1-word change on my profile, my LinkedIn profile. I got a job the next day. So when I saw that happen, I knew there was a shift, and I knew there was some magic here that we could be doing on LinkedIn to get people coming to you as opposed to you doing the traditional lead cycle and go outbound and try to find people and spam them and spray them with whether it's a resume or just trying to do cold calling. The research backs it up. The cold calls for businesses, the resume spraying, it just does not work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the question that everybody that's listening wants me to ask you. I can just tell you now. What was that 1-word change that made all the difference for that resume?
Sure, sure. Believe it or not, the one word was open. I changed my headline to say, instead of, let's say at the time it was probably something with business analyst, I said, I'm open. I'm open as a business analyst to do blah, 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 blah. And a recruiter saw it. Now, this is a great little clarification thing here. The recruiter that saw it, to be fully upfront, he was in my network. And you can't always get away with that. Right now, there's a better way to do it. It's called #ONO. And it's an acronym that stands for Open to New Opportunities. So in 4 characters, just like open, in 4 characters, you have a lot more context. The #ONO is a great way to signal to people when they see your headline, or even if they search on it and they search your profile. That tells recruiters, if they're aware of it, that, wow, this guy is, he pulls up in my search. Whether you put open in a search, who are you going to get? You're going to get a ton of results. But #ONO is a lot more direct way of doing it. So that's how that morphed. And I was a co-founder, if you will, of that. We did an article back in 2017 with 2 other people. And I've since taken that and turned it into a search mechanism, right? And turned it into a way of branding, a better way of doing it, not just slapping it on a profile and then hoping for the jobs to come to you. That doesn't always work. That's where my method comes in, to make sure that you are fully attracting people. And you already have that network built up. You've got a great, robust profile built up. You put all those 3 things together. Now we're talking. Now you're going to start making the magic happen.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, this is the other thing too that I found quite fascinating, Jared. When we had the earlier conversation, so you say, attracting leads, right? And everybody wants to attract leads. That's just the fundamental. And I love the word that you use, attraction, because when you attract, you're confident, but when you pursue, you compete. And so you're not competing. You're just saying, I'm just going to attract because I've got the confidence to know that I can, and that's where the leads are coming from. But you do it with a 20-step process. So this is not just philosophy. This is not just Jared throwing these things out there. You actually have a 20-step process. Can you give us any insight to someone who's listening to this and says, I'm going to be connecting with Jared because I want to learn more? Can you talk to us about that 20-step process?
I sure can. In fact, I think since we talked about this, I was thinking that it was about 20, and I have since refined it, and it's more like 25 or 26.
Ooh, nice.
And this is what it comes down to. The cornerstone of it is what I learned from working with LinkedIn. I was sought out by LinkedIn for reviewing profiles, of all things, and it was a pilot program they had back in, I believe it was 2017. And what I got from LinkedIn helped me be confident, there's that word again, be confident about what LinkedIn looks for in order of importance, the top 12 sections of a profile, even some backing up of stats, right? If you have this section of a profile, you are X times more likely to get that traction, to get more views and to get more of what you want. So I took that though, and the problem is where it was left hanging is it didn't help you understand how can I actually maximize the search results, getting you actually found. Because a lot of that, in fact, everything about that actually is driven by the content. If you just say, I am a Maverick, you're never going to be found for the word Maverick, right? It's how you use the word Maverick. It's where you use it. It's how many times you use it. There's a lot that goes into it to actually get picked up by the search algorithm and get found for, let's say, if that one word you wanted to be found for was Maverick. And that's what I will do. It's part of why I was saying earlier, I will ask a client or even a prospect, what do you want to be known for and found for? And if, let's say, it's Maverick is the word, we're going to make sure. And in some clients, I end up spending hours doing it, right? Because there is nobody on the planet knows LinkedIn. Well, I can't say nobody knows, but there's probably an NDA. Nobody knows LinkedIn's algorithm. Okay. And in fact, I don't think even LinkedIn knows it, but they know what they program it to do, but it is always learning.
Right.
So unlike Google, LinkedIn is constantly changing, constantly looking at different parameters, and it's trying to find what they think you would be interested in. That's the shortest way to explain it. But now, how does that impact you in finding leads and finding the recruiters and your audience, as I like to call it, attracting your audience? It's a huge impact, right? But the one thing that you can do, and this is a little tip for your audience, go ahead and put in the search terms that you're expecting to be found for. And if you're not showing up on the first 4 pages, it's just like a Google search. If you're not showing up on the first four pages, they're going to move on. So it's a good sign, it's a good indication that you're doing well enough with the content in your profile that if you are shown in the first 4 or 5 pages, you've got good content and you're going to be getting better results. If you're not, that's where I come in.
Okay. And so you're helping people like walk through that process, helping them, where to click, what to do. If you're a novice, so we like to teach people to stay in their strengths, right?
Right.
And so their strength is operating within what they do in business, but you're somebody who can run next to them very quickly, very easily around this, which is your strength and talent, and saying, you know what, let's click on this, Google yourself, or, like what you said with the SEO, if you're trying these things out, you're not showing up, this is a reason why you're not getting leads. And so you're asking and really giving some great information in a very quick timeline. But this is another thing. Okay, so we want to get to know you, Jared, just a little bit more. And on your profile, you are an IKIGAI coach. Now, when you and I talked on the phone, you said it's a Japanese term. So can you share with our audience, what is that you coach on, and tell us about it?
Oh, I would love to, and I'm so glad you asked that. It's so funny, the timing. I just recently did a post where I shared a shortened version of my slide deck that I did in a presentation about IKIGAI, which is pronounced Ikigai. It is a Japanese concept, and a lot of people, I do believe, have heard of it. It's essentially the intersection of four major circles. And on one end of it, what you've got is, and it's where people typically start off, right? They're going for the education. They go and get their training. They get a degree. Then they start looking for a job. Then they start to move up the career ladder. And finally, they start to ask, is this all there is? So now they're starting to think about passion and purpose and all that. That is what I would call a backwards C. What I would suggest instead is look at what the world needs and look at your passion. Look at that intersection. And if you look at the diagram that I've posted, and feel free to connect with me, and I'm glad to share the diagram. But I modified the original diagram. There's tons of versions of them out there, but I made it be more applicable to careers. And I actually did a little bit of the mnemonic trick. It comes down to 4 Ps. So the things that you're looking for are passion, you've got purpose, you've got pursuit, and then you've got profession. That's the order that I would suggest you're doing it in, is to start in more of a true, what are you all about, right? Taking that assessment, knowing what you, like you were just saying, knowing your strengths, what can you add to the world? Because literally that's part of these 4 circles. It's knowing what the world needs. Then can I get paid for it? Am I good at it? Can I get better at it? And finally, I'm loving this, right? It all just comes circling around again. Yes. And if you find that sweet middle spot, that's Ikigai. And that's really what I want at the end of the day. That's what I really want to be helping people with, because it's not just about getting that next lead. It's not just about getting the next job. I want to make sure in both cases, you're loving the career that you're doing, whether you're the entrepreneur or you're in the traditional career, but you're loving it. You are in charge. As Stephen Covey would have said, that ladder is not up against the wrong wall. Your Ikigai is the right wall. It's your wall.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So right there, that's kind of the process in which you help people get into the careers that they love, but it's a very strategic approach to it. It's not like you just kind of vet through some questions. You are saying, we're going to talk about passion, purpose, pursuit. It's going to lead to the profession that's really going to light you up. And when you're in that level of alignment, I describe that as being very, peaceful and very easy. And when it's peaceful and easy, we want to keep doing it. And that's what keeps the sustainability factor of you're happy, you're consistent, you're, everything, just all engines are getting fired. Plus your energy level stays at an all-time high when you're in that space. Oh. So, have you ever experienced that? So as I share that, what are you hearing right there?
Right when you say that, 2 things that come to mind. The first thing, in one word, flow. The way you're describing it, right? When all of that comes together, it's flow. When all of that clicks, and I would take it to another level. Brendan Burchard has a book that he came out with recently called High Performance Habits. And he talks about, not just in the book, but in general, you'll hear him talk about confidence as well as competence. So you may be really good at something, but let's say you don't like it. It's not what you want to do. You may have risen up in the ranks. You may have gotten thrown into a director position, and now you're really struggling. It's not what you wanted. You're not a leader. You'd rather be a contributor. Who knows, right? That's where the confidence now plays, in fact, into it. And sorry to do this, but here comes another segue that makes me come to mind. The 6 Human Needs by Tony Robbins. It's like life is in so many aspects a paradox, one big, huge paradox. right? We all have these competing needs, but it's so true. And it's just like Ikigai. Ikigai gives you both ends of it. You may be doing something you love, but it might be like a starving artist. You're never going to get paid for it. Now, what you need to do is try to find that middle ground. And at the same time, how can you get better at your craft? Let's say in that same example, painting. And at the same time, who's going to want to buy your painting? If you can find the intersection of all those areas, now you found that flow, the human needs, you are on fire, you're passionate, you've got the flow. It just all comes together.
Well, and we attract to it because we're all listening to it. We can hear within your voice right now, you're automatically a magnet to anyone on this episode because we're just enamored by what you are sharing. And you've put a lot of study and research. I mean, you coach on it. You have tied this all together so beautifully in the language that you speak and how you speak it, how you bring people to that space and understanding it, and then helping them, show them the way to do it. So, wow, what a gift. Okay, so we are wrapping up and coming to the close of our episode. Where can we find you?
Predominantly on LinkedIn, of all places.
Right, okay.
So and an easy way to do it too is it's my full name, Jared, Jared, Jwiese, and you can find me that way on LinkedIn. But another quick way is you can put in profiles that pop, and that should also turn me up on LinkedIn and on the web.
Of course, because you know what? You're the master of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Easy to find you, my friend. Okay, so to learn more about Jared, you can simply visit our website at marlohiggins.com, where you can learn how to connect to Jared and add him to your circle of influence. Thank you so much, Jared, for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
What an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Marlo.
We invite you to share this podcast with others, and we thank you in advance for that. This is Marlo Higgins, your host and Chief Inspirational Officer. Have an awesome rest of your day. As your Chief Inspirational Officer, I coach executives to gain clarity and remove self-doubt to increase performance in sales. To book a complimentary coaching session with me, simply visit marlohiggins.com and click on the Work With Me tab to schedule a call. Did you like this podcast? If so, subscribe and share with all of your friends. And if you want even more awesome resources to gain clarity and remove self-doubt, plus some personal insights from me that I only share in email, get yourself over to marlohiggins.com and sign up for the email updates. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next week on 22 Motivational Minutes with Marlo. If you're into it, subscribe, leave a review, and tell all of your friends. We would sure appreciate it.